The Rock Whisperer. Do you hear the earth talking to you?
Seven -2, physical weathering. So physical weathering is also called mechanical weathering. Those two terms can be used interchangeably. So we're going to talk about the 4 different types of physical weathering that we can come across. The first one is called frost action, or sometimes you might see it called frost wedging. And what happens in this, we should already know from our past science experience that when water freezes, water expands. It gets bigger. So in the diagram down here, when we see frost wedging, water is getting into the cracks of rocks. Rocks have cracks in them and they have pores in them. And when that water gets in and expands, it helps to push apart parts of the rock. It weakens the structure and the rocks break. So in the other diagram that we have over here, we can see that this rock has broken in several different places because of that particular action. Temperature is another thing, or sometimes it's called exfoliation, peeling off in layers. Now you may wonder, why do we have the St. Ives apricot facial scrub? Because you probably know, ladies, that an exfoliant is something that helps to peel off the layers of our skin. Well, the same thing is true with rocks. We are peeling off the layers of rocks. So what happens is rocks have repeated heating and cooling. So an area, especially upstate New York, during the summer, it gets pretty hot out during the day. At nighttime, it cools down. And we've already talked many times this year, as things heat, they expand. As they cool, they contract. And now, we can't see that expanding and contracting, but we can see in these diagrams here that as the rock expands and contracts repeatedly, that weakens the structure and the rock starts to break. We can see a couple of the different slabs here. And in this picture over here, we can actually see that some of this has actually slid off the side of the hill. The large pieces have broken off and have moved. The next type of physical weathering or mechanical weathering is organic activity, or it can be referred to as root pry. So a couple different pictures. We saw this again in the activity that we did as an introduction. So that organic activity is living material, things that are there. So rocks have cracks in them, as we already have said, and roots can grow into those cracks. And this is a really good example that you can see that there. And this shows you where the roots are growing in those particular different cracks. As those roots grow, and we'll talk about this a little bit in chemical, there are some chemicals that help the roots to embed. But as the roots grow and expand, it all pushes apart the rock in those particular areas. So the trees can take hold in those particular areas, and they can be in really odd locations. And the last one is called abrasion. Again, I got this picture of a boy down here because this is what we think of when we think of an abrasion. You're running across in gym, you're running across the gym, and you fall and slide across the gym floor. You skin your knee. That's an abrasion. What are you doing? You're peeling off pieces of skin. Well, the same thing is happening with rocks. Except rocks, and you can see in this particular picture, they start off as angular fragments here. So this is our before picture. You can see they're kind of sharp and jagged. But as they get tumbled and rolled and things happen physically, they break down and they become smoother and rounder on the outside edges.
Don't forget to listen to the earth. You just may hear it speak.